this Eagles game is very important, and it's one of those things. You're at home Monday night, prime time. Like, you always have a shot. Like, I don't care what anyone has to say about how the Seahawks are playing. They've been in games.
Dude, man, I'll tell you this right now. At first, I thought, like, I've been so off and on with Justin Fields, but he's shown some better game play the last few weeks. If the Seahawks have the 15th pick of a draft and they have to give up a third-round pick or a second-round pick to go get Justin Fields, I'm making that call and getting Justin Fields. Did you do that on purpose?
No, I just did a peace sign. Do a peace sign. You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
Tito, are you ready? Are you ready? You ready?
All right. Well, you know what, George? We'll just start right here.
All right.
Here we are. After some technical difficulties getting onto the podcast, we figured it out. We're doing our remote podcast today. I'm in a different place, and you're in a different place. And we're going to be talking. It feels like a Thursday, George, because the Seahawks play on Monday, but we're talking Monday Night Football coming up for the Seahawks and the Eagles. A big game in many ways.
Yeah, pretty massive game. It's basically the whole entire season in one game. We win, we're probably still alive. I mean, we are still alive. If we win, we lose. Basically, this season and this podcast is going to be a lot different for the rest of the year because not going to be much to talk about other than the future if we lose, because the season's over if we lose.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. This is really like the epitome of a type of must-win situation because we're almost at that point where winning out is necessary to be in any decent position. The only rebuttal to that would be we did finish 9-8 last year and make the playoffs.
That is true. I guess, I mean, it's the last non-must-win game to stay alive. Because we'll probably still be alive if we lose, but, like, you know what I mean.
Like it becomes a scenario where now you can kind of get back in a driver's seat situation to potentially make the playoffs, and you're finishing the brutal stretch of your schedule. You're going into a situation where you're playing three teams that you could beat and get into the playoffs. But to your point, if you really the only way to guarantee you actually have a shot at the playoff is to win 4 straight and be 10-7. Because at 9-8, you have the situation with the Rams who are ahead of you right now, and they have the tiebreaker. And that's, they beat you twice. So if anything, if we're talking about a situation where the Seahawks potentially, have a guaranteed playoff spot, it's essentially winning on Monday and then beating the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. And that's a tall task for a team that's on a 4-game losing streak. But, there is it's a weird situation because there's a lot of positives you could take and negatives you can take from either situation, like of winning and losing, and it's a complicated situation right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to take back what I said. It's not really a must-win game. Like now, I'm just looking through the standings. The 13th
because 9-8 might get you in.
Well, not just that. The 13th seed in the NFC is the 5-8 Chicago Bears. The 7th seed, which is the playoff spot, is the 6-7 Green Bay Packers. One game separates 13th place all the way to 7th place. So really, we're going to be in the hunt even with a loss. It's a must win. I mean, it'd be very, very, very beneficial for our playoff chances to win this game. It's going to help a lot. But I mean, to be frank, man, I know I've seen both things on Twitter. What does the playoffs really mean? This team is not a Super Bowl team.
I mean, I go through different phases of what to root for almost. And, you can kind of look at both sides, right? You can look at the side of, hey, I'd rather lose out. Let's be 6-11 and get a higher draft pick. And there's the side of, well, that causes a lot more franchise, situational dysfunction, which it does. So there's two sides to it, because you look at a situation where you can say, cool, lose out, get a better draft pick, but then you might start becoming that team that becomes the the Los Angeles Chargers, who start recycling coaches.
Right.
And every year it's about draft picks. The Chicago Bears how many years are the Chicago Bears going to be just banking on draft picks, right? And they
Well, now they're
continually
banking
are
on the
bad.
Carolina
Yeah.
Panthers draft pick, which good
Correct,
for
but they're
them.
also might be banking on their own draft pick being bad again, right? So
Yeah.
my point is there's a good side to like, okay, if you lose out and you get a lot higher draft picks, but there's also a bad side in terms of your franchise and what that means for the whole building going on when you continue to lose. And I'll say one more thing really quickly, which is I did see a good point on Twitter today, which was okay, we just came off a year where we had two first round picks. The fifth pick in the draft and the 20th. The fifth pick in the draft was our highest draft pick since what was it, like 2000 and or what, I think it was like 2001. It's been like 20 years since we were in the top 5. It doesn't guarantee anything, right? Especially like unless the only way being like a top 1 or 2 pick really, really changes your franchise, I feel like, is when you go get like a top 1 or 2 quarterback. Other than that, like, is how much different is it going to be if the Seahawks are 7-10 versus a 9-8? Like, which one would you rather have? Have them lose and get like the 8th pick in the draft, or get the 14th pick, but you're in the playoffs and there's some momentum for the young guys?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very simple. It's actually a very simple answer, and I think because I've been seeing so much different things on Twitter, and I honestly think it's almost an asinine conversation. Because what you just said kind of hits the bell. Like at the end of the day, okay, if the team was 2-14 right now and heading into the last week of the season, we're talking about, potentially getting the number 1 pick and tanking, or
Yeah,
getting
root
the
for a
number 3.
loss.
I would root for a loss. But anytime a team is in the playoff hunt, you're rooting for the playoffs. And before fans say, what are you talking about? Sorry, Seattle fans, we should never speak, because at the end of the day, how excited were we that the Mariners got a wild card berth after 20 years? There are franchises in the NFL that would kill to get a playoff berth, whether that's a 7th seed or a first round bye. Like at the end of the day, if you can be a playoff team, that's a successful year. It's a
And then
good
why'd you say it
year.
doesn't matter? That's what you
What,
started
what,
this
what,
conversation with.
no, I'm saying what happens in the playoffs doesn't matter. I'm not saying we're gonna like win the Super Bowl, but like if
Yeah,
you're
but you
asking me,
said, does it really matter if we make the playoffs or not? We're
no,
not
no,
winning the
no.
Super Bowl.
Of course, it doesn't really matter if we make the playoffs. But if you're asking me to choose between, would I rather get the 13th pick or the 16th pick and make the playoffs? I mean, every single time I'm going to choose going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean that's my point of, I guess I see what your point was.
To what you're saying, I agree with you.
Yeah, but I was just going off of the reason I went on that rant, because your comment of, does it matter if we make playoffs or not Super Bowl contenders? I think I get your point. You're saying like we're not going to win the Super Bowl regardless, which is true. But
let me
I get
clarify
what you
that.
mean. Like
It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but as a fan, I always
it's
going to
better
root
too.
to make the playoffs. I want to be entertained. This is the entertainment business. Like my team making the playoffs is more entertaining than my team having the 13th pick
Okay.
versus the 15th pick.
I'm just saying. All I'm saying is that comment of, does it matter? That's where my point was going. Because to me, it does. Like, because there's no difference of, having like you said, we're not 2-11 where we're like, holy shit, like, do we get Caleb Williams, or like we got to really like, if I was, if you're the I guess
Patriots.
yeah, the Patriots, right? Like, I'd be like, bro, I'm Bill Belichick. I want to lose every game. If I can keep this job and get Caleb Williams next year, who knows what's coming, right? Now, if you're the Panthers, maybe it's different because you're giving away your first pick.
Right.
If you're the Bears, though, you're like, if I'm a Bears fan right now, sorry, screw Justin Fields. We're not going to have him next year. We're going to try to go get Caleb Williams.
I'm going to disagree with that. The Bears have no chance to get Caleb Williams. They're a game out of a playoffs now. They've just been too good as of late. Now you're rooting for the playoffs if you're the Bears.
They have the Panthers pick, though.
Yeah, you're rooting for the Panthers to lose, but if you're the Bears, you want your team to win. Because
I disagree. Can I tell you why? Because they're a dumb franchise. Hold on. If a quarterback takes them to the playoffs, they might. There is a chance that they trade out of the first pick and keep Justin Fields if he shows some flash at the end of the year. If I was a Bears fan, I would hope for a collapse so we don't have any questions about it and we go get Caleb Williams.
Dude, man, I'll tell you this right now. At first, I thought, like, I've been so off and on with Justin Fields, but he's shown some better game play the last few weeks. If the Seahawks have the 15th pick of a draft and they have to give up a third-round pick or a second-round pick to go get Justin Fields, I'm making that call and getting Justin
I
Fields. I mean,
agree. I'm
but you know
talking
what?
about the Bears.
Oh, I know. But you know what? I'm looking at the Bears. They might make the playoffs. I mean, it's going to be us or the Bears maybe for that last spot.
No, they're going to be too far. I think it'll be like Green Bay or LA or Minnesota. They're
I know
still
this is
far
not.
back.
I know this is not a Bears podcast. I'm going to say this really quick. The Bears played the Browns with an injured quarterback, Cardinals, Falcons, and the Packers at the end of the season. They beat the Packers. They jump them. They're only a game back on the Packers.
I bet you they win one out of those 4 games. Maybe they're not good.
I think they're pretty good, but we'll see.
They're not as good as all those teams you mentioned. Cardinals have Kyler Murray now. By the way, the Cardinals. When we talk about the Seahawks schedule, now that you brought it up,
Seriously, now the Cardinals,
they're not
you're
bad.
right.
Like they're like once Kyler Murray came back, the team is not bad. So
I saw a stat.
There's a lot.
I saw a stat about
harder of a
Kyler.
schedule than we think.
Yeah, sorry, bro. I don't mean to keep. You're a little delayed on my end, so I don't know when you're talking and not talking. But speaking of the Cardinals, I just saw a stat today. They haven't turned over the ball one time since Kyler Murray's came back.
I believe that he's a great quarterback. I mean, at the end of the day, with Kyler Murray, if you look at the Seahawks schedule, we have the Eagles now. We have to get to this Eagles thing.
Yeah, we do.
Like, I want to talk about the game, but I'll say one thing: is the Eagles game is a tough one. Obviously, the Titans on the road it's a game, right? And Will Levis looked really good last week. They beat the Dolphins. It's going to be a Christmas Eve game in Tennessee, and they're okay and they're well coached. The Steelers is the one that I can't get a grip on anything Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I don't know if they suck or if they're good. But then Cardinals also is not that easy, right? This is the easiest part of our schedule coming up, but it's still no cakewalk, which is why if we go back to what you said to start the podcast, and if we get to this Eagles game, is this Eagles game is very important, and it's one of those things. You're at home Monday night, prime time. Like, you always have a shot. Like, I don't care what anyone has to say about how the Seahawks are playing. They've been in games. They only lost by 1 to the Rams 2 weeks ago in LA. They only lost by like 3 to the Bengals in Cincinnati. And they only lost to the Cowboys by 6 in Dallas primetime. Like, as bad as the record might come across, we've had a shot in all of these games. And I see a situation where we're going to have a shot against the Eagles to win. Now, I'm not saying we're going to beat them. I'm saying there's going to be a point in the game where it's a 5-point game, a 3-point game, and we're going to have a shot. And if you can get that win, that's why it feels like a must win. If you can get that win, you're at 7-7 with 3 winnable games, and the season looks a lot different than being 6-8 and having to win out.
Yeah. I saw that you posted something, or us on the Sports on Tap Seattle, but you posted the Eagles haven't won in Seattle for like X amount of years, or we beat them like something
they haven't beat the Seahawks in 15 years, not just in Seattle.
Is that true? We beat them. Yeah, we did. We beat them in the playoffs, right? Yeah, we did beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah, in Philly. That was DK Metcalf's first game. We had a really good game.
Yeah.
Seahawks Eagles history. I'll tell you when the last time was.
Yeah, because I think I saw that stat. I was like, damn, really?
Yeah, it's let's see. They last 25 years. I don't know. This is weird. I don't know where I got that number 15. Somebody said that. Maybe it was in Seattle, but we definitely haven't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. They haven't beat us since 2008. We've beat them every time. 2011, 14, 16, 17, 19, and 20. I don't know. They haven't beat us at minimum for like close to 15 years.
Okay, well, I'm going to actually say that stat is accurate. They haven't beat us in 15 years, and I don't expect them to start now, okay?
No, they haven't beat us since 2008. So they actually haven't beat us in 15 years.
So let's keep that streak going, man.
But I don't know how many games. I think it's 7 games in a row in 15 years.
All right, yeah, and I actually do think that we could win this game. Look, Seattle, Monday Night Football is never an easy place to play. I mean, regardless, even if this team was 3 and I don't know how many games we played so far, but 3-11, You
There'd be a
become,
chance.
yeah, Monday Night Football in Seattle. I still would give them a chance to win this game. And honestly, one of these close games has to go our way at some point, right? We can't be losing every single close game over and over and over again. One of them has to go our way.
3 losses this year, like I mentioned, the Bengals, the Cowboys, and the Rams. Those 3 losses for a combined 11 points. Hypothetically, even if you got 2 out of those 3, you're talking about a 6 and or sorry, it'd be an 8 and what are we? We're 8 and 5 team. 2 of those, we'd be 8 and 5 instead of 6 and 7. So
Right.
that's a huge 1 point. Remember the Rams? We missed Jason Myers missed a game winner against the Rams. That's one that flip flops to 7 and 6. You lost the Bengals game. We just could not score in the red zone. We had 4 red zone trips without a point, without a field goal. Like if a tiny amount of things went our way, which is odd. I think I saw it's actually an interesting topic. Is Tyler Lockett said right after the last game, he was like, we're in that situation where we have to start believing. We have to, we're used to sometimes these miracle moments. He said something along those lines, and it got me thinking. And I think I made a YouTube video about like this. It was kind of about this specific topic. Is like we're almost there. A lot of games, but this year specifically feels like the opposite of what usually happens with the Seahawks. The Seahawks usually that team with that little like miracle, the magic, like all that Rams game, we'd be the team that won. That Cowboys game, we'd be the team that wins that game somehow. Something crazy happening, a pick 6 to win. And Tyler Lockett mentioned that, like being on the Seahawks for the last whatever amount of years, they always seem to have like a lot of like big belief moments and miracles happen. And
Right.
I've been feeling like all those moments this year have been going other teams' ways and not the Seahawks way. And it doesn't feel like the Seahawks like our luck. We usually have like the weird good luck that always happens our way, and we're not getting that this year.
Yeah, part of it is you like need to make your own luck, but also part of it is
Yeah.
luck is involved. You know what I mean by that? Like, yeah, sure, it hasn't gone our way, but also our quarterback play. Geno's, by the way, I'm not on the Geno sucks camp at all, but like he hasn't made the plays in the fourth quarter. But I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, the Rams game, he got us into field goal range,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And they
so,
didn't make it.
and he didn't make it. If we made that, all of a sudden we'd be 1-2. But like in general, I'm not on that camp. But like you make your own luck, and we don't have a top 6-7 quarterback in the NFL. We have a quarterback who's a little bit in that mid-range, 14, 15, 16th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's when we talk about those miracles. And I don't know if he still would have it if he was in Seattle right now, but it was a lot of the Russell Wilson end of game-winning drive magic that Geno probably just doesn't have. It's not a hate on Geno thing. Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback for a solid 3, 4, 5 year stretch.
Right.
When you have a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFL, you get those miracle wins and some magical wins. And we went from having a top 5 quarterback to the 15th best quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not even blaming the Russell Wilson trade. Russell Wilson's kind of in that same category as Geno Smith in that range. We saved money. It all worked out for everyone for the best. But
I think it worked out, like you said, for the best.
Yeah, for everyone too. I mean, the Broncos are happier now with Russell Wilson this year, especially if Wilson and Sean Payton and they're in the playoff hunt. It's much better than if they were still rocking with Drew Lock, no offense, but or like whoever they had that like 10-year stretch of Brock Osweiler and Drew Lock and all these guys and Tim Tebow. Like they're glad to have Russell Wilson, but he's still not. I don't think this year would be much different with Russell Wilson. I think we would still fall short a little bit on some of those games. And I think the Seahawks are just a team right now that, it's weird. We have a good mix of young and old, but I think there's just a couple pieces that need to be worked on still to get us a little bit over the hump, right? And one might be quarterback in the next few years. One might be the linebacking core, like in the safeties. I mean, I love Quandre Diggs. I mean, Jamal Adams was a cool idea for while he lasted. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of young groups, and then we have some aging groups, like the safeties, like our quarterback and other places. And we just might not be good enough in a couple spots, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, but my only issue with everything you just said is it's kind of like the spot you don't want to be in general in sports, is that like we're like, I mean, I think the Cincinnati Bengals were the best like version of that for so many years with Marvin Lewis. where
Yeah.
I think they made
With
the
Carson
playoffs like
Palmer and every year
if,
make the playoffs. And
yeah,
Dalton.
but Andy Dalton specifically is the one I'm thinking of here. The Andy Dalton years, because Palmer was pretty good towards ACL. Then he
Yeah.
refused. Remember, he retired and refused to play for them ever again. And we went
Yeah,
to the
you're talking
Raiders.
about you're talking about the Andy Dalton, AJ Green years.
Yeah, those years.
Yeah.
And that team was consistently a playoff team. They never got too high, never got too low. When did they finally take that next step up? Is when they bottomed out, got the number 1 overall pick, and got Joe Burrow.
And change
Uh,
coaches, change the
and
entire system.
yeah,
Yeah.
it changed the whole entire system. And I don't necessarily think I don't want to change the whole system. I love Pete Carroll, but I do think we do need to make some sort of non-limbo move for the quarterback position at some point. At some point, I
Yeah.
don't know what that is. That could be just going all in and trading in a bunch of picks and going up to get to the number 2 overall pick, like the Carolina Panthers did this year, and it didn't work out with Bryce Young so far. But I mean, at some point, you got to take a big swing at a quarterback if you want to take that next step.
Yeah. I mean, I think they know they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith. Now, what the issue is what you just said is the limbo, which is if you're not going to be bad enough to be getting a top 5 pick, even if all your young guy around you are getting, the DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Boye Mafe, and Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, if they're all growing, you're going to miss their window if you don't have a quarterback at some point in that window that can win a Super Bowl.
Right.
So being in that limbo is kind of weird. Now, I don't know. I think the end of this year is going to kind of tell us a lot about what's going on with the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith knows that himself. Is these next couple of weeks, if you lose 3 out of the next 4, and we end up with 7-10 season, you got to know that things are going to start changing soon.
Right.
If you win out and you're a 10-7 team and you go to the playoffs again, how much can you convince an ownership, the GM? How much can you convince a coach that we're not nowhere near there if you're 10-7 or 9-8 and make the playoffs 2 years in a row? It puts you kind of in that spot again where you're like, man, we're not that far off, right? If you make the play, there's so many teams that would die to make the playoffs 2 years in a row, and like we might have that again, but we're still talking about being in limbo. The issue is at the same time is we expect a lot from the Seahawks, right? It's not the Mariners. It's not we're not the Cleveland Browns of football. We expect a lot from the Seahawks. That's why we expect to win.
Yeah, but can I play devil's advocate for 1 minute from against what I just said?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can hit the lotto, right? I mean, I'm going to give 2 examples, and they're both the Super Bowl teams that were there last season. The Kansas City Chiefs with the 11th pick or 10th pick of the NFL draft went and selected Patrick Mahomes, hit the lotto. They were a pretty good team that was able to take that step up. The Philadelphia Eagles hit the lotto with a 2nd-round draft pick with Jalen Hurts. Pretty good team, took the step up and got into the Super Bowl. So, I mean, if I want to go look into the mind of maybe Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they're hoping, I think, this is like their mindset is, we're a pretty good team. Can we hit the lotto with the 14th, 15th, 16th pick of a draft upcoming, or trade for a Justin Fields, or go get an underserved quarterback and hit the lotto? I think that's their mindset.
Yeah, because they know that the team is not that bad, right? Like,
right, exactly.
We're not that good and we're not that bad. But you know what can make us that good is all of a sudden, if you have a quarterback, if you find, like you said, if you find that, like Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick, right?
We hit the lotto.
Yeah, we didn't bottom out to go get Russell Wilson, right? So
right.
we traded for Matt Flynn and paid good money because we thought we had which we did. We thought we had a contending team. And this is
Exactly.
what I think you're right. The Seahawks are looking at this and saying, Geno Smith might be that Matt Flynn type of guy that's what they were expecting from a Matt Flynn. We have a young team, a lot of good pieces. This guy will get us, over the hump a little bit, like 9-8, 10-7 seasons until we strike gold and find whether it's the Justin Fields in a trade, whether it's a Zach Wilson in a trade, right? Like, oh, Zach Wilson, he's been good at the end of the year. We might get him for cheap. Let's test it out. Things like this. Or 3rd round next year, the Seahawks select, whoever. Let's say Michael Penix was a 2nd-round pick, right? Because some people, nobody knows where the hell Michael Penix is going to go. He's going to
go
be a top,
somewhere between the 1st round and the 7th round for sure.
Yeah. No. He's literally either going to be like the 10th pick in the draft up to like the second or third round. Like he could go anywhere.
His thing is just all health concerns, really. I think a lot of people are so concerned about his health. I mean, God, he's had 4 season-ending injuries in 6 seasons. So
yeah, and health, and just some people don't see his arm as like a Caleb Williams arm, a Drake May arm. Like he is a very good quarterback, but that sometimes when you're looking for drafts, you're looking for like a exceptional, like extraordinary quarterback. But that my point to that is all of a sudden somebody like a Michael Penix, I'm just saying somebody like that, or whoever it is. Oh, we have the 45th pick in the draft. There's a quarterback there, and you take him, and then everyone kind of just sees it as okay, that's interesting, but like you believe in that guy so much, like the Russell Wilson situation, where that ends up being your guy, and then you add that to your young team, and you're really good. So
exactly,
I agree with you. I think the Seahawks, they're not looking to tank. They're not looking to fire Pete Carroll and start over. They really think that, hey, give us a year or two to find the right guy. As Geno Smith keeps us good enough, right? We're not losing jobs. We're not bottoming out. We'll stay good enough, and then we'll find our guy, and then all the young guys will be. It kind of just reminds me of our old times when we had the defense that was growing. All we needed was Russell Wilson to show up somewhere in the third round of the draft. We found him. We won our Super Bowl. And I think that's what they're thinking again. And I don't blame them for thinking that, because guess what? They did it last time.
I know. It's kind of funny. Like, okay, yeah, we just want to hit on a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Okay, nothing much. I'm not asking for much. I just want a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback to fall into our lap.
Hey, we did it once.
I know. Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. We did it once. We're trying to replicate strike gold twice, man.
Yeah, probably not happening, but we'll see. Not right now. Who knows? Michael Penix. Everyone loves that idea.
I know, and I presented it on a YouTube video and on Twitter, and everyone loved the idea. I don't know if I'm so sold on the idea. I'm a Washington Husky fan, but his injury history does concern me a little bit.
Bro, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't control like any of that stuff. Like now he's healthy, right? Like Joe Burrow, unfortunately, every other year has a season-ending injury. Like you can't control it, right? It's the NFL. Like,
you can't. But at some point, like it just concerns me. I'm not saying I'm trying to control. It just concerns me.
No. I'm saying some guys like that. There's some random dudes like that happens, and then all of a sudden he never gets hurt again in his career.
True,
You're like, that was weird. So yeah. Football, man, it's football. All right, I think that's all we got. We went over the 10 minutes we thought. We did a real ass podcast, but
who wins the game?
I mean, in all reality, I think the Seahawks have a better chance this week than they've had in the last few weeks. The 2 games against San Francisco and Dallas.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna reverse jinx us. I think the Eagles win, but we're gonna have another close one, like 27-24. I just think both the offenses right now are just struggling in certain spots. But I'll give the Eagles the slight. I think the spread's 3, right, or 3 or 4 anyway. So I'm gonna give them the exact spread. Like the Seahawks lose by whatever the spread is, but I think we're gonna have another really good game again, which is like against Dallas. We're right there, that type of game.
Yeah, same here. I got to pick the Eagles to win this game. We're just not that good right now. They're a better team than us. They went to the Super Bowl last year for a reason. They have a quarterback. At some point, we haven't beat them in 15. They haven't beat us in 15 years. So I could see that reversing. I hope I'm wrong, but I got them 27-21 Eagles.
I hope I'm wrong too, and part of me wants to just be a reverse jinx, because I feel like every time I've said, Seahawks might lose now, they might win, and then every time I pick them to win, they lose. So Seahawks lose. Go lose, buddy.
I think I picked them to lose. Yeah. I think I've been actually almost spot on every pick this year except the 2 Rams games.
Yeah, the Rams games have been confusing.
Those are the 2 I just got wrong.
Yeah, McVay's a good coach.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we got. Much love. We'll be back soon. We've been off of podcast for a while. For those listening just on the podcast, you can expect us to be a little more on here more often. So we love y'all. And George, this is the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast, and you know what we like to say?
Hey, thanks for stopping by.
Peace, y'all.
Did you do that on purpose?
No, I just did a peace sign. Do a peace sign.